Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. And in today's episode, we are doing part 2 of our controversial horror movies. Again, I'm just going to do 2 in this one. I feel like there's plenty more, but I was trying to condense it to a list that I thought was conducive to things that I like and had a lot of thoughts on. You ever start to talk and you think you've been talking for a lot longer than you actually have? If you're not being timed or you're not thinking about time, you can literally talk for hours without even taking a breath. But when it comes to having to be timed, I was really bad about that in college. It did not go well for me. If it was timed, I was fucked. So the first film that I'm going to talk about that had some controversy surrounding it is Blair Witch Project. I know a lot of you are going, oh God, as soon as I say it, I know. So many people. My friend Carrie, everyone's mad. No one likes that movie, except me. I'm like the only one. So the Blair Witch Project came out in 1999. It is a very student film. If you haven't seen it, I think you should at least see it one time. I don't expect it to be everybody's favorite. First of all, it's found footage. It's very rough found footage. I get it. And, you know, some people honestly just didn't find it scary. Some people just didn't like the actors. Some people just didn't like the premise. There's all kinds of reasons not to like it, but I'm going to tell you the reasons that I do like it. So Blair Witch Project is about these 3 friends. 2 of them are friends. One of them brings somebody and they get to know each other, so it's 3 total. But anyway, they are filming about this legend called the Blair Witch. And so they go to this town where there's supposed to be this legend of a witch that lives in the woods, a witch that's taken children, and some people have sworn to see her, all these things. So essentially, they're very young filmmakers, which typically when you have that archetype in found footage films, they're the ones that are super obnoxious about the camera, right? They're the ones that always put the camera in your face when you don't want it. They're the ones that are always getting told to shut the fuck up. Like, it's always this thing. So we have at least one of those. So they go on this trip, they interview some people in the town, and then they go into the woods. And as time goes on, and the nights come along, they start to experience a lot of really weird things, and some bad things happen to them, and they're never heard from again. So one of the reasons that I will say that I like the movie is I feel like the reason it's sort of controversial, or at least that it was after it was released, I think is what made it a little more scary. So when the movie was released, it was released under the, well, they said that it was real. I don't know who they is, but they said it was real. These kids were never heard from again. This was footage that was found in the woods after the fact, and no one had heard from these kids. I say kids, young adults, in however long, and no one knew where they were, and it was this huge thing. They were not listed as actors anywhere. They were listed as themselves, and their parents or whoever had supposedly released the footage and said it was okay to make the movie. So they essentially, the longer that they're in the woods, they get lost and they never find their way out. They all end up presumably dead. And there's a lot, this one's the same as I would say most found footage films, a lot more practical effects than anything. You know, hands all over the tents, which can be done very easily without having to spend a bunch of money. Sounds, trees breaking, weird objects that they find. But I think because, to me, I feel like I have to defend this film so much. It's ridiculous. I need to just calm down. I didn't even make it. But like I guess the feeling that you get of the being lost, and I feel like all of that was just paced so well. So I actually did not see this movie until like, gosh, when did I see it for the first time? Like 2009? I saw it way after the fact. Because I think I was a little nervous about watching it because I thought it was real. Well, by the time I watched it, I knew that it wasn't. The people had come out of hiding. They had, I don't know, like been yelled at for lying to people and for freaking people out for no reason. But yeah, I think that's obviously the reason that one's controversial, is because of the fact that everyone, you know, people thought it was real. They were worried. It just kind of brought upon this like question of, is something like this really out there? Did they get eaten by a bear? Like, what happened to them, and why can't we find them? Why has no one heard from them? Is the footage real? Is it faked? I'm sure that was questioned even from the beginning. I won't tell you how old I was in 1999 when that came out. I was not very old. And Anyway, so but I overall I think it's actually a really good movie. I think it's worth watching to know the background and go back and watch it. I feel like I got a little bit more out of it knowing what they had gone through to create the hoax around Blair Witch Project, as opposed to thinking, like, oh my God, this is real. I think it's kind of scary in general, but again, I know a lot of people don't like it. It's very jostling. If you have not seen it, it is very rough found footage. It's a lot of up and down with the camera, a lot of spinning, it's a little ugh to watch sometimes. Thankfully, I feel like they've gotten a lot better about that in that subgenre. But anyway, so my fourth one is one that I found sort of on accident. I was reading an article about it, and I thought the title was interesting, and I was like, oh, what's this about? And this is one you may not have heard of, which is Ghostwatch. Ghostwatch came out in 1992. And Ghostwatch is a BBC film that is done in the way of a newscast show the night of Halloween. So this is controversial because, similarly actually to the Blair Witch, it's because people thought it was real. It was presented in a very real way. So what they did was a very popular news channel hosted the event as a real life Halloween night broadcast of an interview with a family that said they lived in a haunted house. Okay. So there's real anchors. These are people you see in the morning news and the evening news that you trust. They tell you things that are going on around you. And they're like super pumped about this fun activity to do on Halloween night. And they interview people around the house and people who know the family and yada, yada, yada. They take write-in letters or phone calls, and they have a medium, a specialist. Like there's all these like pieces, of course. So anyway, they meet the family, they go into the house, and right away, it's interesting because they do the whole faking thing first, where they catch the daughter making the noises and they're like, oh, she's faking it, and it just goes back and forth. And the longer that the movie progresses and the more that of things actually happen inside the house, they start getting more phone calls about really odd things happening in other places. And what it essentially boils down to is the family lives in a house where a man killed himself in the crawl space, I think. And his cats ate him after he died, and no one knew he was there for a really long time. And the spirit goes by the name of Pipes. And so they think that it's all related to that. It's all related to this spirit of this man that died there. But it's actually turns out to be something demonic. And so people are at home watching these newscasters tell them about these horrible things and show them these horrible things that are happening around them. And people started to panic, like almost, not quite, but almost like War of the Worlds panic. Like people thought it was very real. They had no reason not to, right? No one had said that it wasn't technically, which was all done on purpose to get a reaction. Well, so at the end of the film, when the family is all gone, and the news station starts to experience a lot of really crazy things, and there's these crazy amount of calls coming in with people having, spirit activity in their homes, it alludes to the fact that broadcasting the events has created this worldwide seance that has brought all these things up to torment all these people in their homes and stuff. And it was a really, really big deal. When I wanted to watch it after I read about it originally, I will post the link that I used to watch it. It's not a crazy link. You don't have to download anything. There's not like a shit ton of ads. It worked very well for me. I was able to project it onto my TV and I was able to watch it and it was fine. And it was a really great version. There's not a bunch of like issues with it or anything like that. It was perfect. No ads. So I saved it and I will put it in the description below. So anyway, so when I wanted to watch it, I couldn't freaking find it. You go to like Amazon Prime and it's like not available. And so I did just a little bit more research, and the movie was banned shortly after it was aired. It was for a really long time. You could not find it anywhere, not even in the States. And we're a lot more lenient about that stuff than some of the other countries. Australia, looking at you, no Outlast. So it's interesting because like, I have never, I'm not used to even thinking about movies like that. I mean, most of the stuff is just out there. You have access to so many things now. And this is one of the things that you can now get access to. It's really a little bit difficult to find. Anyway, so it's, I'm going to put the link though, so you can watch it. It's really good. It's really well done. Even for the time that it came out. So it was banned. You were not allowed, like no one was allowed to sell it. You couldn't find it. There were no like, unless you had just happened to record it the night that it came out, like it didn't exist anymore. No one wanted it around. And there were a couple of things. They had over 20,000 phone calls complaining about the effects that this show / movie had on family members, adults, children. There were cases of child psychologists that came out a couple of years after the fact that said that it had created or it had caused PTSD in small children because they were so scared that these things were really happening and that something was going to happen to them. Because something happens to the kids, the two daughters in the film as well, to the point that the actresses had to come out and talk, basically addressing children to let them know that they were okay, they were not hurt, this was not real, that they were acting and all of these things. And I think even at that point, there was still a lot of doubt around it. It's really hard to convince kids of stuff like that. Sometimes it's like they know that you're trying to make them feel better. And then there was even 2 instances, one where a young man had, his mother was, I don't know if she sued or tried to sue or something to that effect, but she raised a bunch of noise because of the fact that after her son saw the show / movie, it got to him so bad that the existence of these things, that there are these spirits around us, they can hurt us if they want to. All of this stuff is very real all of a sudden because he's watching a newscast that he's probably seen 100 times and what they say is fact, right? Kind of like how we live now. And supposedly it drove him to the point that he could not come back, and he ultimately took his life. Now, what I can say about that, I'll put a little like asterisk. What I can say about that is I didn't find anything that suggested how true that was. Mostly because there's no information, at least that I could find, that states, he didn't have any previous conditions. He had never suffered from depression. He had never had, none of that information exists, but that was the claim. The claim was the show was so real and so terrifying, and he could not get over it to the point that it drove him to take his own life. Again, I don't know the accuracy of that actually happening. I don't know that anyone now really does. I mean, it's probably a secret that died with that family. When the mother and father passed years later, they might still be alive, I guess. 92 wasn't that long ago. And then the other issue, or the other thing that came up, supposedly, was the show movie caused so much stress that it caused a woman to go into preterm labor. Mother and baby were fine after the fact. But that's what she believed pushed her to make the baby, for the baby to come early, was the movie was just so stressful, and it created so much anxiety that her body was just like, out. So that's how it works. So that's Ghostwatch. What year did I say? 92. Ghostwatch is actually a very good film. It's very well done. It reminds me a lot of the Conjuring series and how it's filmed and the way that it's done. It is technically got the found footage pieces. There's a little bit of the moving camera, but it's not really bad because it's mostly filmed like a news show. But I thought it was really good. Kid actors, man, they make everything so damn convincing. But all in all, it was a super good movie. I highly recommend it if you have not seen it. Again, I will put a link below. To that. And I didn't even mean to do it, but those two kind of have a theme. I didn't really mean for that to be the case, but the theme being that they were presented as very real things, Ghostwatch and Blair Witch Project, that they were presented as these real things, and they weren't. And of course, the difference is when Ghostwatch tried to say, no, just kidding. None of this is real. People were like, no, now we think it is. It was very hard to come back from it. And the film was banned, and all these things happened after the fact. And but with the Blair Witch Project, it was a little bit different. When they came out and told them that it wasn't real, people were pissed and angry, and they felt gullible and mad. So So that wraps up at least this part of controversial films. There's actually quite a few more that I may talk about at a later time, but I just, I'm always fascinated by the effects of film on society and people and what it does to them and what it creates. And just goes to show you, when you have a platform, you have a lot more control than you realize, and you should use it responsibly. Off my soapbox on that one. So anyway, I hope you guys had a really good week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you next Saturday. Good night.